In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and God saw it was good.
What's so strange about the behavior of orchids? That's next on today's Creation Moment. And now, here's our Creation Moments host, Ian Taylor.
There are between 10,000 and 15,000 species of orchid. While you surely are not familiar with all of them, it sounds strange to talk about orchid behavior. This huge variety of orchids offers a multitude of different flower shapes, colors and sizes. Each unique shape, color and size are perfectly suited to the bees, butterflies, bats and birds that are involved in that orchid's pollination. Those orchids that use birds as pollinators have no scent. Instead, they offer the brightest of colors, appealing to the bird's strongest sense. Evolutionists call this co-evolution. However, giving it a name doesn't explain it. How did these orchids know that the bird's strongest sense is sight? And how were these orchids able to perform genetic recombination upon themselves so that they could develop their bright colors? Or consider the bee orchid.
In the warmer parts of Europe lives a whole group that bamboozle their pollinators into thinking that they're going to get a really sensational reward, a sexual one. They're little orchids, and their flowers reproduce remarkably closely the signals that enable a male bee or wasp to recognize a female of the same species. Several have blue patches. One is fringed with what looks like fur. A wasp's wings, in the right light, do flash iridescent blue, and its abdomen is covered with thick brown fur. A female wasp also pumps out an identifying perfume, but the orchid does the same, and the result is irresistible. As the male wasp nuzzles forward in his attempts to mate, he butts the pollinia which stick to him like yellow horns. He seems to be well aware that something has happened to him, but there's nothing he can do about it, and he flies off to try his luck elsewhere. Which, of course, is what the orchid requires, because this time he deposits the pollen on another bogus female.
This unusual orchid, a hammer orchid, it could be coincidence that all the females are still underground when the orchid flowers, but it is quite beyond coincidence when the flower assumes the shape, mimics the body, and even gives off the scent of the female wasp, and this precisely when there are lots of sex-starved male wasps around. The hinge joint, the correct length of arm, a glistening sticky pad between two yellow pollen sacs at exactly the right distance from the dummy wasp must have been grown with incredible accuracy. It is perfect for a bizarre coupling of wasp with flower. Sufficiently deceived, he tries to fly off with her, but succeeds only in catapulting himself into the orchid's anthers. At last, his furry back peels off the yellow pollen-bearing sacs. He gives up and tears himself free. Although the go-between carries the pollen to other flowers, for the orchid's deception to work, he must visit another hammer orchid, like the wasp visiting now, bringing male elements to receptive female parts.
How can it be scientific to suggest that a plant purposely reconstructed itself to fool bees into pollinating it? God has purposely made it impossible to explain the creation without him. He did this not simply so that we would see that he is real. His purpose is much greater. God seeks a personal relationship with you and has made that possible through the saving work of his Son Jesus Christ for us. It is to Christ that he would ultimately draw our attention.
For more information, visit us online at creationmoments.com. You'll find both written and audio transcripts and many other resources, all at creationmoments.com.